Hey, this is Darren from Property Prosperity. Today I thought I'd recap on, or take it a little bit further on my last Sunday's market update. I actually had a comment come through from Jason who asked me whether I could focus in a little bit further on a particular suburb. I don't know if that's the suburb where he lives or just where he's interested in. But I'll happy to help him out. So the suburb's Erindale. So what I thought I'd do is just go through, give you a bit of a heads up on the area of Erindale in case you've never heard of it before, and then we'll get into some sort of deeper statistical type things. Hey, thanks for the like there, and if you like what I say, then click on the like. I'd really appreciate that too. So, and thanks for watching. So if we have a bit of a look in Erindale, sorry, I'm going to actually look down a little bit just because I don't know this off by heart. So Erindale is only about 1 square kilometre in size. Hey Dave, thanks for joining. So what that means is it's a pretty small suburb, and the danger you get with that, any statistical information we get, it's going to be pretty unreliable. So they call that like the sample size, the number of people, or the number of households, or the number of anything. So the more we have to choose from, the more reliable our statistical information is. But we're still got to work our way through it because we might get some information out of it which might be useful. So it's less than it's about 1 square kilometre. There's about 4 parks in Erindale, so that would, even if you don't know Erindale, you probably think that's a pretty nice place to live. So within a kilometre, and there's 1 kilometre and there's 4 parks, so that means it's a pretty nice place to live. It's also within about 6 k's from the CBD, so again, that's another thing that would say, hey, it's pretty close to the area. So straight away, you're thinking it's probably a pretty nice area and it's pretty close to the city, so you'd imagine it'd be quite valuable. So even if you don't know anything about the suburb, you think, well, this is probably going to be higher than your average price for your average house in the property in Adelaide, because it's closer to the city than your average house. So we're also looking here that the population in 2006 was 1,077 people, and the population in 2011 was 1,126. So not much has changed. It's gone up by about 4% over the last sort of 5 years or so. So it means it's pretty stable population growth. So that means you probably imagine then, even if you don't know anything about Erindale, you'd probably say, hey, well, it's probably a pretty well-established area because they're not doing much development, not having new people move in. So that's a bit of a sign of, again, giving us more indication of what the suburb's like. We know that it's primarily couples, and they're paying around about $2,500 to $3,000 per month in mortgage repayments. So again, another hint, if we don't know much about Erindale, you'd probably expect then that must be in a higher price bracket than your average property, because then you're talking $3,000 a month. That's sort of 30 grand, plus a year, which indicate then it's a fairly, fancy area to live, I suppose. So, and the average person that's living in there is a professional and professional occupation. So that, again, it's all, even that's the thing about statistics. All they're doing is confirming the information we already know. So even if you know the suburb, it's just good to go through the statistical information and just get it to just make sure it backs up what we already know about the property. And then 86% of people are owner-occupiers. So again, that's a pretty good sign that it's a pretty stable market. And it's probably less rental properties, more people that own the properties. It's probably a lot more, probably more desirable, I suppose. Most people want to live where people own the properties because they look after their properties a bit more if you own there rather than renting it. So again, you'd probably imagine it would probably the top end of the price range. And then we look at the current sales price, the median sales price. Understanding the median sales price is the middle price a house sells for. So the houses sell for in the area. So example wise, if there's a property that sells for $500,000 and a property that sells for $1 million, and there's a property that sells for $550,000, then the median house price is $550,000. It's the middle price that the houses sell for. So that's why what you really want is a big sample size. If you only have 1 or 2 properties sell, then the median house price can quite skew where that, the middle house price can really skew what our statistical results is. So in this example, the median house price is $1.42 million. So that's only for the month of June. But saying that, the median house price in Adelaide is like $430,000. So we know that it's definitely at the top end. It's probably 3 or 4 times the value of the median house price in Adelaide. So that's a pretty good sign that we know that it's not the same as your average house in Adelaide. So if we look at the median house price the month before, though, in May, it was $840,000. And if we go back a few months, it was 1.1 and then 1 million and 1.3. If we look at the median house price over the period of 2015, and if we look over the whole year, it's probably probably around about $1 million is the median house price over the last year of 2015. So that's probably a bit of a guide. Then the median house price is probably around that million mark, but we can see over the last few months there's been a bit of up and down. 1.3 and a million and 840,000 and 1.4. So that 1.4 is probably at the top end relative to other sales we see in the area. So you'd probably say that's more of an anomaly. And so it doesn't necessarily represent the true price of what things are worth. So again, what I try to do is I look at the average of the median house prices and I try to use that as a bit of a guide of what I think the properties might be worth. And again, it's probably around that $1 million mark is probably the average of all the medians, which is a pretty good sign. We come in here and look at a few other different things. What else we got? So land sales, there's been a few land sales, probably, that around that about $500,000 mark for a block of land. So again, this is another sign of if you're trying to look for a bit of a bargain, if you buy a block of land and you can build a house on it less than the median house price, then maybe that's an indication of what you could do is just buy some land, build a house on it, and then you've made some money straight away. So in this example, if you can buy a block of land for $500,000 and you build a house on there for $300,000, then in theory that's about $800,000 the finished off house would cost. And if the median house price is $1 million, then that's a pretty good sign that you can buy a block of land, build a house, and maybe make some capital gains straight away. The difficulty you're going to find with this is because, just from the information we've read so far about Erindale, it's a pretty small area. We know there's probably not going to be a lot of blocks of land available on the market because there's so few houses on the market and there's so few properties available. So keep up the live valued info. Fantastic. Thanks, Debbie. And so what else have we got in here? We've got sales per annum. That's another bit of a guide to tell us how reliable our information is. So last year, 2016, was about 10 sales in last year. This year's about, the year before was 2015, was about 13 sales. Year before that was about 23 sales. So you can see it's all confirming what we knew, that there's basically very few sales in the area. So again, what you might want to do is start to look a bit further abroad, look at the surrounding suburbs or even the area, the suburb itself. What they call the council area, the local government area they call it. And so, that's probably the most interesting things we got there. I've got another spreadsheet I can actually pull some information out, which is quite interesting as well, which shows us that, again, what I said to you before, that there's about 6 Ks from the CBD, that the total number of properties actually here, this gives us more information. There's only 416 properties in Erindale. So that's not a big supply of properties. So again, any statistical information you get is probably not hugely reliable. And the number of properties sold in the last 12 months was only 19. So that in the world of property, number of sales, that's not a big sample size. So what else have we got here? We've got the 12-month change in sales volume. So number of sales have dropped by about 24%. So not less houses have sold. And if we look at the change in the median sales price over the last 12 months, was about 21% is the price has gone up. But remember, this is why these numbers might be misleading. Is remember the last one we saw was 1.4 when all the rest were like $1 million and 800,000. So it might just mean that was an anomaly. It was just a higher sales than would be average for the area. So we might not really place a lot of value in that. But if we look at the 60 month, so we're going like 5 years change in median sales price, it's around about 27%. And we look at the compounding growth rate, so we're looking at over the last 5 years, so it's about 4.9% is on average what it's grown each year. So you can see that's not a huge amount, but if we look at over the last 10 years, it's about 7.8%. And when they talk about properties doubling out every 10 years, so that means it should increase about 7% every year. So this one's increased about 7.8%. So that's confirmed the properties doubling out every 10 years sort of average. Over the last 20 years, it's gone up by about 7.7% on average every year. So again, that's the confirming the properties doubling every 10 years, which, I can see a lot of people say that doesn't really work. But yeah, this is an example of where that's where it's happened. So coming a look at anything else I can see interesting here. Percentage of stock on the market at any point in time is around about 5% of properties are on the market at any point in time. And anything else here that might be interesting. Median rent in the last 12 months was around about $700. I'm assuming it's a week. Hopefully it does. It doesn't say that, but I'm sure it is. Anything else here? Average time that people hold their property for in Erindale is around about 8 years. So that is pretty common. That's not extreme. So the median age is about 42, which confirms what we talked about with the family of young kids is the average type of person. Average weekly income is around about $2,000 a week. So times that by 52 weeks in a year, that means people earn an average around about 100 grand a year or so. So which when the median income is probably around about 40 or 50 grand a year, so we're knowing they're earning probably double the average person. So that would explain why the properties are worth more than your average house in Adelaide. The percentage of people that lived at another address a year ago is about 10% of people lived at another address a year ago. I don't know whether that's any use to anybody at all, but average household size is 2.7, which confirm the whole, average would be a family with 2 kids or 1 or 2 kids. 83% of them are detached houses. So again, even if we don't know anything about Erindale, we know it's probably an older established area with bigger houses on bigger blocks. You can just tell by the value of the property, the types of people that are living in the property. So it's amazing what you can pick up with just all this statistical information, and you don't even have to go to the property, and you can start to work out a lot of this stuff. All you need to do now is get onto Google Earth and start walking up and down the streets, and before you know it, you can become a bit of an expert on Erindale before, without a huge amount of effort. And just something slightly interesting is around about 47% of people fully own their property outright. So when we're talking the median house price is $1 million, and we've got about almost 50% of people own their property outright, these people are in a fairly stable financial position as well. Another 40% or so are paying it off, and there's only like 10% of people which are renting their properties in Erindale. So there you go. So hopefully, Jason, you found some useful information out of that. You might know a little bit more about what your neighbours are up to now. And I'm going to try and do this every Sunday night. If you have a suburb that you're interested in knowing more about in Adelaide, because that's where I've got all my information about, feel free to put a comment in the comment box. I'm happy to talk about your suburb at a future episode. And if you liked what I had to say, click on the like box. If you haven't liked it, still click on the like box too, because I really appreciate it. And if you know someone that lives in Erindale, make sure you tag them in and share it with them, because I'm sure they'll find it pretty interesting. Even if you don't know anyone in Erindale, still just share it, because I think it'd be really cool. And I look forward to talking to you again. And if you've got something else you'd like me to talk about in a future episode, then put something in the comment box, and I'm happy to chat about that too. So thanks, guys, and I look forward to talking to you again next time. Thanks.